Maya moved first. Not Marcus. Not the guests with their phones raised. Not the investors standing with their mouths tight like they had just watched something expensive crack. Maya set her tray on the nearest table, grabbed a stack of white cloth napkins, and stepped in front of Isaiah as if her small body could cover the stains spreading down his jacket. "Sir, let me help you," she said, her voice shaking only at the edges. Isaiah looked at the soup dripping from his sleeve onto the floor. The heat had reached his skin now, sharp and mean, but he did not pull away from her. "Careful," he murmured. "There's glass near your shoe." Maya looked down. A piece of the broken bowl rested beside her black sneaker. She shifted her foot back. Marcus saw the movement and snapped his fingers at two bussers by the bar. "Clean this up, now, and somebody get him out of here." Isaiah knelt before they could touch the mess. His old knees bent slowly, but his hands were steady. He picked up the largest pieces of porcelain and placed them inside one of Maya's napkins. A few guests stared harder then, confused by a man wiping up his own humiliation, stood, slowly, one hand pressed against the wet patch on his chest. "Mr. Vale," he said, and Marcus flinched slightly at hearing his own name from a man he thought knew nothing. "She did not invite me to sit. She did not disturb your customers. She gave me soup that was going to be discarded. If there is blame, put it on me." Marcus laughed once. "You want blame? Fine." He turned toward the hostess stand. "Call the police. Tell them we have a trespasser causing a disturbance." Maya's eyes widened. "He didn't cause anything." Isaiah raised one hand, asking her to stop before her courage cost her more than it already had. "Maya," he said softly, "do not spend all your fire in one room." She looked at him then, really looked, past the soup and the old jacket and the gray beard. Isaiah reached into his pouch, took out a folded napkin he had brought from a diner across town, and pulled a pen from the seam of his backpack. Key lay there, sticky with soup, the engraved letters darkened but readable. For the first time that night his face changed, not into rage, into decision. The officer asked Isaiah for his name, and Isaiah gave it without lifting his voice. Isaiah Freeman. The younger officer typed it into a tablet while the older one watched the restaurant through the glass. Inside, Marcus had already returned to his guests. A waiter moved a mop across the floor where the soup had fallen, erasing the stain like it had never happened. "You got somewhere to go tonight, Mr. Freeman?" the older officer asked. Isaiah rubbed one thumb over the brass key in his palm. "Yes, sir." The officer glanced at his jacket. "You want medical attention?" Isaiah looked down at the dark, wet patch over his chest. The heat had faded into a dull burn. "Not from anybody he pays." The younger officer frowned at the tablet. Something had come up under Isaiah's name, something that made his eyes move from the screen to the old man's face and back again. But before he could ask, Isaiah said, "Am I being charged?" Cloth pulled from his shirt. He touched the wrong part of the building. Denise took a breath, the kind lawyers take when anger has to become evidence. She pointed to the chair. "Sit. I need times." Isaiah gave them. 6:23, entered the restaurant. 6:29, Maya gave him soup. 6:31, Marcus approached. 6:32, bowl thrown. 6:36, police called. Denise wrote without interrupting. On the wall behind her hung a framed black and white photograph of the same brick building from decades earlier. The gold letters were newer now, but in the picture the entrance read Freeman Building. A younger Isaiah stood beside it in dress uniform, one hand on the shoulder of a boy in a church suit. Part of the frame was covered by an old newspaper clipping. "Local veteran saves 3 in restaurant fire." Denise slid a tablet across the desk. Front camera caught enough. Isaiah watched the footage in silence. No sound, just Marcus's white jacket moving fast, Maya stepping forward, soup exploding across Isaiah's chest. Denise tapped the screen. "Hallway angle confirms assault. We can move tomorrow." "Not enough. Isaiah, he assaulted you in a room full of witnesses. Witnesses change their minds when money speaks first." Denise hated that he was right. She opened another folder. Inside were copies of lease violations, unapproved construction, blocked emergency exit, missing accessibility ramp inspection, employee complaints marked anonymous. The building case is ready. Isaiah touched the edge of one page. The charity case is not. Denise's eyes sharpened. You still think he's stealing from the Veterans Fund? Isaiah reached into his pouch and pulled out the soggy napkin that had wrapped the soup bowl. A printed sticker clung to it, half peeled, marked Veteran Outreach MAL. Comped. He threw it at me, Isaiah said. Then he claimed it as charity. Denise stared at the sticker. The room went still around them. From the ceiling, an old pipe knocked once like a warning. If we reveal ownership now, she said slowly, he shuts everything down, cleans the books, scares the staff, and tells the press you're a bitter landlord. Isaiah nodded. So we let him think I'm only what he saw. Denise looked at the wet army jacket hanging over the chair, at the brass key on the desk, at the man who owned half the block and still smelled like soup because he had chosen not to pull rank in a crowded room. And Maya? She asked. Isaiah picked up the key and closed his fist around it. She paid for kindness tonight. We make sure she does not pay alone. On the tablet, the paused image showed Marcus's arm extended, the bowl in midair, the whole dining room frozen before impact. But in the corner of the frame, almost hidden behind the service door, another camera blinked red, a camera not listed on Marcus's security map. By 9 the next morning, Maya stood in front of a glass office door on the second floor above a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and butter. The words on the door read Freeman Property Group in small black letters. Not loud, not flashy, the kind of sign people passed every day without knowing how much power sat behind it. She had changed out of her restaurant uniform, but the red mark where her apron had rubbed her neck was still there. In her hand was the brass key, cleaned as well as she could clean it with dish soap and a toothbrush. She had found it under a booth after Marcus ordered everyone to pretend nothing happened. When the door opened, an older black man with silver glasses looked at her over a clipboard. Maya Ellis? Yes, sir. Harold Benton, building manager. He did not smile, but he stepped aside. Inside, the office was quiet in a way expensive places often were. Thick carpet, framed permits, old photographs of storefronts from the 80s, a conference table with bottled water no one had opened. Maya held the key tighter, suddenly aware of her cheap flats squeaking against the floor. Then she saw Isaiah seated at the far end of the table in a clean gray sweater, the army jacket folded beside him in a clear garment bag. He looked smaller without the coat and somehow more impossible to dismiss. Harold pulled out a chair. Maya did not sit. I just came to return this. She placed the brass key on the table. Denise, the lawyer from the night before, looked at it, then. Isaiah, you were not supposed to go back in there. Maya lifted her chin. I wasn't supposed to feed him either. For the first time, Isaiah smiled faintly. Fair answer. Harold closed the door behind her. The click made Maya glance back. Denise noticed. You are not trapped here. Good, Maya said, because I have been in enough rooms where powerful people smiled before taking something. The sentence stayed in the air. Isaiah nodded once, accepting the boundary instead of punishing it. Then we start with what you choose to give. Denise slid a legal pad toward her. We need a timeline, not feelings. Times, names, movements. Maya sat then, not because they told her to, but because the work was real. She closed her eyes and rebuilt the restaurant in her mind. Marcus was with 3 investors by the wine wall. Troy was on bar. Kendra was hostess. Benny was on dish. The camera room door was open at 6:28 because I saw the blue monitor light. At 6:33, after the soup, Marcus told Rico to handle the back. Rico went through the service hall, not the dining room. Harold's pen stopped moving. Rico has access to the camera cabinet. Maya opened her eyes. He also has a gambling problem. Marcus covers his advances through payroll. Denise underlined something hard enough to tear the paper. Isaiah watched Maya, not with pity, but with the attention of a commander listening to someone who had seen the battlefield from ground level. How do you know? He asked. Because servers hear everything when rich men think we are furniture. Harold's phone buzzed. He read the message and the little bit of softness left his face. Marcus just requested emergency permission to host a veterans gala next Friday. Feed our veterans. Press, donors, local councilmen. The works. Maya laughed once, bitter and short. He throws soup on a veteran, then sells tickets in their name. Denise leaned back. That gala gives him cameras, witnesses, and a cleaner story. Isaiah reached for the brass key and placed it in front of Maya instead of taking it back. It also gives us a room he cannot explain away. Maya looked at the key. What are you asking me to do? Not perform, Isaiah said. Observe, confirm. Decide for yourself what truth costs. Before Maya could answer, Harold's assistant knocked and slipped in a printed photo from the lobby camera downstairs. Marcus stood on the sidewalk outside the building, staring up toward the second-floor windows, phone pressed to his ear, his white jacket gone, his face no longer polished. Someone had told him Maya was here. Marcus did not come upstairs. He stayed on the sidewalk long enough to let the camera catch him looking worried, then walked back into Vale and Vine with a phone in one hand and a new smile already forming. Upstairs, Isaiah did not move toward the window. He only turned the brass key once between his fingers and said, "A man who wants to know the truth comes to the door. A man who wants control waits outside and calls someone else." Maya watched him place the key beside the garment bag holding his stained army jacket. Under the office lights, the dark soup mark looked almost black against the faded fabric. "Why keep it?" she asked. Isaiah opened the bag just enough to touch the patch. "Because some stains tell the truth better than clean cloth." Then he asked for the restaurant floor plan. Harold spread the blueprint across the conference table, weighing the corners with coffee mugs and a stapler. The paper showed every wall, exit, camera mount, storage room, and service hallway. Isaiah leaned over it, no longer looking like a man who had wandered in from the cold. His finger moved with quiet certainty. This wall was load-bearing before Marcus opened the bar shelf. This exit cannot be blocked. This camera here should see the back office door unless somebody turned it. Harold's eyebrows rose. "You remember all that?" Isaiah did not look up. "I carried bricks here before I owned bricks here." Maya stepped closer. Her own memory began filling the blank spaces. The night he threw the soup, Rico went this way. She traced the service hall. But he came back from here, not the camera closet. That means he stopped in dry storage first. Denise pulled the payroll folder forward. "What's in dry storage?" "The old tablet," Maya said. "Marcus uses it when he wants. Numbers changed after closing. He says the main system is for staff and the tablet is for management." Harold left the room and returned with access logs printed from the building Wi-Fi. The small victory came quietly. At 6:34 p.m., 1 minute after Marcus called Isaiah a trespasser, the hidden tablet connected to the restaurant network under Marcus's administrator account. At 6:35, the camera archive was opened. At 6:36, the soup order was reclassified as Veteran Outreach Meal. Denise tapped the page with one fingernail. That is not proof of everything, but it proves he was cleaning the story while the police were being called. Maya exhaled like she had been holding her breath since the bowl shattered. Isaiah looked at her. "You saw what they thought you were. Today you showed what you know." She blinked fast and looked away before gratitude could embarrass her. "Servers remember because nobody expects us to." Isaiah took the brass key and slid it back toward her. "Then keep remembering." For the first time, Maya wrapped her hand around it without feeling like she was holding someone else's power. Downstairs, Mrs. Ruth from the bakery arrived carrying a cardboard box tied with twine. Inside were old framed photographs from the building's hallway before Marcus redecorated. One showed a younger Isaiah in uniform, smoke streaked across his face, carrying a child from a burning restaurant. Another showed the same child, years later, standing beside his father at a ribbon cutting. Maya leaned closer. "That's Marcus's dad." Isaiah's face changed only slightly, but enough. "Walter Vale." He never forgot. His son did. Before anyone could speak, Maya's phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. Then again. Her cousin had sent a link. The video had already gone up. In Marcus's edited version, Isaiah appeared to shove toward the host stand. Maya looked angry and unstable, and Marcus's voice floated over the clip. "We cannot allow harassment of guests or staff, no matter how emotional the situation becomes." Under it, the caption read, "Local restaurant owner protects diners from aggressive homeless man." A second post followed minutes later, glossy and clean, with Marcus smiling. Beside folded flags and empty plates. "Proud to announce our Veterans Gala this Friday." Maya looked at Isaiah's stained jacket in the garment bag, then at the brass key in her palm, said, "Right now he's trying this case in public." He circled 3 names on Marcus's charity committee, then drew arrows toward 2 vendors, 1 councilman's office, and the veterans nonprofit listed on the gala invitation. "He's building witnesses before he's building evidence." Maya leaned over the table. "Then we need people who were actually there." "Not people," Isaiah corrected gently. "Facts. People forget. Records don't." Instead of chasing Marcus's television interview, Maya began calling former coworkers one by one. Most hung up immediately. Some whispered before ending the call. Only Benny from the dish room agreed to meet her after dark behind a grocery warehouse. When he arrived, he kept looking over both shoulders. "They're saying you and the old man planned everything," he whispered. "Marcus told everyone you're working with some landlord trying to extort him." Maya stared at him. "Did you believe that?" Benny rubbed the back of his neck. "I believed Marcus signs my paycheck." Then he reached into his backpack and handed her a folded schedule printed from the restaurant's office. Tiny handwritten initials covered one corner. Rico changed shifts that night. Marcus called him in early. Nobody knew why. Maya unfolded the paper completely. A single line caught her attention. "Camera maintenance. 5:45 p.m. She looked up. Vale and Vine never schedules camera maintenance before dinner service. Benny nodded nervously. "That's why I remembered." Before he could say more, headlights swept across the alley. A black SUV slowed just long enough for someone inside to take photographs before driving away. Benny's face drained of color. "I have to go." He ran without another word, leaving Maya alone with the schedule trembling in her hands. 20 minutes later, her phone vibrated. A notification from Vale and Vine appeared. "Employee bulletin. Any staff member communicating with Maya Ellis or the unidentified homeless individual will be terminated immediately and reported as participating in an attempted fraud scheme." Another message followed seconds later from her landlord. "I heard about the news. We need to discuss your lease tomorrow." Maya lowered the phone. Slowly, Marcus had moved beyond protecting his reputation. He was now reaching into every corner of her life. At that same moment, Isaiah received an overnight delivery with no return address. Inside was his old army photograph, removed from the frame, ripped cleanly through the image of his young son. Across the back, someone had written 4 words in black marker: "Stay invisible or lose everything." Isaiah did not show anyone the photograph at first. He carried it folded inside his palm until the edges softened from the heat of his skin. At noon, he walked to the old veterans shelter on Mitchell Street, the one he had funded for 7 years without letting his name appear on the donor wall. A man near the entrance recognized him from Marcus's video and stepped back. Another muttered, "That's the one from the restaurant." Isaiah kept walking. He saw the way the room changed around him, not with hatred, but with doubt, and doubt from people who understood hunger cut deeper than laughter from strangers. In the kitchen, a volunteer hesitated before handing him a tray. Isaiah noticed and gave the tray to a younger veteran sitting alone with shaking hands. "You eat first," he said. Nobody was filming. Nobody thanked him. The younger man looked at the soup and whispered, "They said you were making us look bad." Isaiah sat across from him, the torn photograph hidden under his sleeve. A lie does not become truth because it wears a clean shirt. Across town, Maya stood in her apartment doorway while her landlord tapped a printed screenshot of Marcus's bulletin against his clipboard. "I don't want trouble in my building," he said. "I'm not trouble." Maybe not. But trouble follows people who get on the news. She had until Friday morning to pay the balance or leave. When she came to the Freeman office that evening, her eyes were dry in a way that made Denise stop talking mid-sentence. Harold had news too. 2 tenants had called asking whether the building was being sold. Marcus's investors were spreading the rumor that Isaiah was mentally unstable and that a professional management transition was coming. For the first time, Denise raised her voice. We should have revealed ownership the second he touched you. Isaiah placed the ripped photograph on the table. The room went quiet. Maya saw the tear through the boy's face and understood before anyone said it. Your son. Isaiah nodded. Caleb, Army medic. Came home with ghosts the country stopped naming after the parade ended. His thumb touched the ripped edge. I built the shelter after he died because I kept thinking somebody should have opened a door before he ran out of places to knock. No one spoke. Then Isaiah looked at Harold. You were right about the camera. Harold frowned. Which one? Isaiah took the brass key from Maya and turned it over. The back was not smooth. Beneath the old engraving was a tiny stamped number, B17. I thought it was just the master key mark, Maya said. Isaiah shook his head.
Basement circuit.
Camera B17 used to face the service corridor before Marcus remodeled. Harold stood so fast his chair rolled backward. The old backup server. Denise's eyes sharpened. You told me that system was dead. Dead from the restaurant side, Harold said. Not from the building side if the battery held. They went down through the bakery after closing, past cooling racks and flour-dusted counters, into a basement that smelled of concrete, rust, and old rain. Isaiah moved slowly, one hand on the rail, but he refused help. Behind a panel marked electrical, Harold found a small black recorder coated in dust. Its red light blinked once every few seconds, weak but alive. Maya covered her mouth. The camera had not seen the dining room. It had seen the service corridor. It had seen Rico enter dry storage before the police call. It had seen Marcus arrive 30 seconds later, white jacket sleeves rolled up, pointing at the camera cabinet and saying something the audio barely caught. Harold boosted the sound. Marcus's voice cracked through static. Erase the bowl. Leave the old man moving toward the desk. I want him to look dangerous. Denise whispered, That is it. But Isaiah did not smile. He stared at the screen, then at the torn photograph beside the keyboard. Marcus had not only lied about a bowl of soup. He had built a machine that turned hungry people into threats and kindness into fraud. Isaiah picked up the recorder with both hands like it was something fragile and holy. No more quiet rooms, he said. Friday night, he tells his story in front of everybody. Then we tell the truth. By Friday night, Vale and Vine looked cleaner than a courtroom and more nervous than a church before confession. White tablecloths covered every table. Small American flags stood in silver holders. A banner behind the stage read Feed Our Veterans in navy blue letters, and Marcus moved beneath it like a man trying to stand inside his own lie before anyone noticed the walls shaking. Reporters gathered near the bar. Investors shook hands. The same guests who had watched Isaiah get thrown out now held champagne and waited to applaud generosity. Maya entered through the front door, not the kitchen. She wore a simple black dress, the brass key hanging from a thin chain at her throat. Marcus saw her and smiled for the room. Maya, he said warmly, loud enough for cameras. I hope you came to apologize. Maya did not answer. Denise entered behind her with a leather folder. Harold followed with a small black recorder sealed in an evidence bag. Then Isaiah stepped through the door in the same army jacket, cleaned but not repaired, the soup stain still visible over his heart. The room shifted. Marcus's smile held for 1 second too long. Security, he called. Isaiah raised one hand. Let him speak first. Marcus took the microphone, grateful for the sound of his own voice. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a difficult week. My restaurant was attacked by a false story, but tonight we choose compassion. Denise walked to the projector before he could continue. Then compassion should not fear records. The first video played without sound. Marcus's edited clip, the one the news had shown. Isaiah near the host stand. Maya raising her voice. Marcus appearing calm. Marcus nodded quickly. Exactly. That is what happened. Denise clicked once. The second video filled the screen. The hallway camera showed the missing beginning. Maya handing Isaiah soup, Marcus snatching the bowl, the hot splash bursting across Isaiah's chest. A woman in the back. Gasp. Someone lowered their glass. Marcus lifted both hands. That angle lacks context. Maya stepped forward. So here is context. She placed the printed schedule on the podium. Camera maintenance was written in before dinner service. Rico was called in early. The soup was changed in the POS system 1 minute after the police were called. Denise showed the Wi-Fi access log. Marcus's administrator account. 6:34 p.m. archive opened. 6:36 p.m. charity meal reclassified. Marcus's face lost color, but he still reached for control. Administrative corrections happen all the time. Harold raised the evidence bag. Not like this. The basement recording played next, grainy and dim. Rico entering dry storage. Marcus following. Static. Then Marcus's voice, thin but unmistakable. Erase the bowl. Leave the old man moving toward the desk. I want him to look dangerous. The room went so quiet the projector fan sounded loud. Marcus turned toward the investors. That was taken illegally. Denise did not blink. It was recorded by the building's backup security system after you altered cameras connected to leased premises. You may argue procedure with counsel. You cannot argue your voice with God and everybody in this room. Then Isaiah walked to the front. He did not take the microphone right away. He looked at the tables, at the flags, at the guests who had laughed or looked away, at the place on the floor where the bowl had shattered. My name is Isaiah Freeman, he said. Harold opened the final folder and placed the deed under the camera. Freeman Building LLC. Owner, Isaiah Caleb Freeman. Marcus stared at the screen, then at the brass key on Maya's chest, then back at Isaiah as if the room had tilted beneath him. Isaiah's voice stayed low. You threw soup at a veteran in a building named after the son I buried. You used veterans to raise money. You used hunger as a prop. And when kindness embarrassed you, you tried to make it look dangerous. Marcus opened his mouth, but no sentence came out clean. Behind him, his father slowly stood from the front table, one hand gripping the chair. Isaiah, he whispered. Recognition traveled through his face like pain returning to a healed bone. Isaiah looked at him once, then back to Marcus. Denise slid the lease violation notice onto the podium. As of tonight, formal proceedings begin. Cameras turned. Phones rose. The truth was no longer hidden in a basement recorder, a brass key, or an old man's silence. It was standing under Marcus's own banner, in front of every guest he had invited to believe him. Marcus tried to apologize before the cameras stopped recording, but the apology came out polished, not clean. I regret the misunderstanding, he said, and Isaiah turned away before the sentence could finish. Denise corrected the word in front of everyone. Assault is not a misunderstanding. Fraud is not a misunderstanding. Retaliation against staff is not a misunderstanding. By Monday morning, Vale and Vine's liquor license was under review, the Veterans Gala account was frozen, and the lease termination had been filed with every violation attached. Rico, shaking in a borrowed jacket, gave a statement about the deleted footage. The investors removed their names from Marcus's project. His father did not defend him. He only stood outside the closed restaurant, looking at the old brick as if he had finally seen what his son was willing to burn for status. Maya got her job back, but not as a server under someone else's temper. Isaiah offered her a management role in the new kitchen, and she did not say yes right away. She asked for written worker protections, fair scheduling, and a policy that no employee could be fired for feeding someone food marked for disposal. Isaiah read every line, then signed it. Power should come with paperwork, he said. The old tenants came next. Mrs. Ruth brought cinnamon rolls and a list of people Marcus had threatened. Benny came with dishwater scars on his hands and names of staff owed wages. One by one, the building stopped whispering. People who had looked away from Isaiah that night returned to say what they should have said earlier. Some apologies were clumsy. Some were late. Isaiah accepted only the ones that came with action. A woman who had filmed him helped testify. The councilman who had praised Marcus sponsored a city hearing on fake charity. Branding. The news station that ran the edited clip aired the full footage and named the correction plainly. Weeks later, the gold letters above the door were removed. The new sign was not flashy. Freeman Table, it read, with smaller words beneath it. Community kitchen and restaurant. On opening night, no red carpet covered the sidewalk. There were folding chairs, warm lights, and a line that mixed suits, work boots, uniforms, wheelchairs, church hats, and backpacks. Maya stood at the host stand with the brass key on a chain at her neck. Isaiah wore the same army jacket, cleaned but still carrying the faint shadow of soup over the patch. He had refused to replace it. Near the front window, one table stayed empty until the first veteran came in from the cold, unsure whether he was allowed to sit. Maya walked over with a bowl of soup held carefully in both hands. She did not hand it down to him. She set it on the table like it belonged there. Isaiah watched from the doorway, his fingers resting on the old photograph of Caleb now repaired behind glass. He did not smile big. He only breathed like a man putting down something heavy. Outside, the city moved past the windows, impatient and bright. Inside, the brass key turned once in the lock, not to keep people out, but to open the door again.